Mario is always the one in the limelight. He gets to go on these grand adventures, rescue Princess Peach, and save the entire universe. In my opinion though, even with all the fame and heroics, he'll never be as cool as the boy Luigi, baby. For decades, my man had been living in his older brother's shadow, but in 2001, when the GameCube first hit the shelves, Nintendo decided that it was time for a change. Nintendo decided that it was Luigi time. Instead of the long-anticipated sequel to Super Mario 64, the GameCube launched with Luigi's Mansion, a quirky little quest featuring the superior Mario brother. Having never played this game before, I decided that there was no better time to give it a shot than over 20 years after its original release. My bad. Better late than never, right? I'm Fiber Optic Broadbean, and this is why Luigi's Mansion is a timeless classic. Mario games are typically very upbeat and happy, with vibrant colours that really pop out at you. Luigi's Mansion, however, takes things in a completely different direction. You spend the majority of the game wandering around the hallways of a haunted mansion, which is dimly lit with a dark and muted colour palette. This creates a sense of uncertainty and unease as you feel on edge, not knowing what could be waiting for you just around the corner. Even the way the camera works contributes to this. Unlike in the main series 3D Mario titles where you have free control over the perspective, in Luigi's Mansion, the camera angle stays fixed during gameplay, making it easier to be surprised by ghosts hiding off screen. There are a few instances where the perspective does change, but these are used sparingly in cutscenes like unlocking doors to further build up tension. Luigi is clearly terrified by all of this. You can tell by just how expressive his animations are. The poor guy is not having a good time. In almost every cutscene, he'll be shivering and trembling, but he still presses on with the goal of saving his missing brother in mind. Without Mario to lean on, we get to see a lot more of his personality shine through, and this is the first game where the character traits we associate with him now were really established. Speaking of Mario, there's actually a dedicated button that solely purposes to make Luigi call out Mario's name. Mario! I don't know why they included this, but I'm not complaining. Each Mario is slightly different as well, so it never gets old. There is a sense of loneliness that comes with this though. With your only contact with the outside world being the occasional phone call from Gadd, you're mostly left to your own devices within the mansion. You feel isolated and alone, but that only adds to the overall eerie atmosphere and keeps you fully immersed. What adds to this is the music that plays when you're walking around the corridors, but honestly, there's not a whole lot to it. I mean, it's even lacking the main melody that most people think of when they remember the Luigi's Mansion theme in the first place. What I find clever is that it's actually Luigi himself who completes the song. Throughout the game, he'll pretty much be constantly humming that da 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 tune, and trust me when I say this, it'll be drilled into your head by the time you've played all the way through. A cool detail with the humming is that in a well-lit room where the ghosts are all cleared away, Luigi sounds a lot cheerier and whistles along happily to the music, but when it's a darker and scarier area, his voice starts to tremble. You can hear the shakiness in his humming, and I always thought that was neat. This isn't the only place that you hear this melody though. In fact, it's also used for the ringtone of the Game Boy Horror, and then there's this funky remix that plays in Gadd's lab. It is such a vibe, you know. It sounds like Gadd's about to hop on that track and spit some bars any second now. Actually, you know what? So I won this brand new mansion, but Mario is missing. I'm scared on my own, I've never been in this position, but I gotta brave the graveyard for my brother, getting ambushed by one ghost and saved by another. Oh wait, it's just a wise old man who came to help this green bean out. Says his name's Gadd, we make the dream team. About time we catch some ghosts lacking when they're none the wiser. Then we use the portrificationizer. Now let me hit you with the slow flow. 50 brews got loose where they go though. I gotta catch 'em all like it's Johto. Where'd you hide them, Shigeru Miyamoto? FOBB in the house, let's go! Yeah, with my Poltergus 3000 I'ma hunt 'em all down. Green missile locked and loaded, ain't playing around. No fear, no hesitation when I take 'em Bogmire. I got ice in my veins but I spit hot fire. You can call me Chief Chili cause you know I've been chillin'. King Boo thinks he's a menace but I'm the real villain. I asked Madame Clairvoyant to tell me my fortune. She said the sky ain't the limit, you can shoot for the moon. Ha 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 ha. Yeah, shout out to my boy Gadd, bro. And speaking of Professor Gadd, this game marked his debut appearance in the Mario series. As far as side characters go, he is very distinct because of just how quirky and eccentric he is. While he is a little strange and can be a bit absent-minded at times, he still looks out for Luigi with the phone calls that he makes to check up on him, taking on a sort of mentor or advisor role. As a matter of fact, he's the one who gives Luigi the Poltergust 3000, which is the main weapon you use against the ghosts you come across. In terms of its use in combat, I'd describe the way it works as simple, yet satisfying. You basically have to use your flashlight to stun the ghosts and then suck them up with your vacuum cleaner. Of course, these guys don't go down without a fight and will try to escape your clutches. To counter this, you need to move the control stick in the opposite direction to the ghost movements, which creates this unique tug-of-war mechanic. The controls do take some practice to get used to, but once it clicks, it gives the gameplay a very snappy feel. As you progress further into the mansion, the Poltergust also gains a few upgrades via these elemental medals, which allow the vacuum to shoot out fire, ice and water. These are required to solve certain puzzles or beat specific ghosts. For example, the fire is used to light candles, the water can be used to water plants, and the ice can freeze water or slow enemies down. Puzzles are a real focus of this game, and some of them play around with your perspective, like in this room at the beginning, which seemingly has nothing inside. You can't see anything on any of the walls around you, that is until you look into the mirror. There you'll see a button, and pushing it causes the whole room to expand. While it's not going to blow your mind or anything, there are some interesting ideas here which make you think outside the box a little bit. Within this newly expanded room, however, lies a trap door, and when you open it, 50 boos escape from the depths. They then proceed to hide all around the mansion, and on a few occasions you'll need to catch a certain number of them to allow you to enter further areas. Every single one of them also has a boo pun as its name, and I love this so much. You've got Kung Boo, Booligan, Peekaboo, Game Boo Advance, man, it's amazing. As with most ghosts, you gotta suck them up with the Poltergust, although they can travel from room to room if you don't catch them in time, which does get a bit frustrating. Now, while the Poltergust is the main one of Gadd's inventions that you'll be using, he also gives you the Game Boy Horror. This acts as your map, your progress tracker, and also lets you examine your surroundings. You can look at almost anything in the mansion, and Luigi will have something to say about it. From the comments he makes throughout the game, we can kinda glean that Luigi's a bit of a clean freak and is also pretty discerning when it comes to art. These small insights give you a brief look as to what's going on inside his head, which gives him that little bit more character on top of the heavy lifting done by his animations. This feels like something they were keen on doing back in the early GameCube days. It's like with Pikmin when you had Olimar's journal entries and the Piclopedia. It's not all just flavor text though, as investigating stuff with the Game Boy Horror does have one major practical use. What I'm referring to here are the fights against the portrait ghosts. The lore is that these are the ghosts of people who used to live in the mansion. For example, in the first area, you have two ghost parents, Neville and Lydia, and their kid Chauncey. Unlike most ghosts in the mansion, whose hearts you're able to see just by flashing your torch to stun them, the portrait ghosts are a bit trickier. They need to be taken by surprise. One way or another, you have to figure out how to catch them off guard, and this is where the Game Boy Horror comes in. By scanning the portrait ghosts, you hear their thoughts, which can in turn reveal their weaknesses. Take Chauncey for example, who you'll find asleep in his cot. You find out that he's pretty fond of his rocking horse, so naturally you have to figure out a way to make it rock. You do this by vacuuming it with your Poltergust, which in turn wakes him up. One of the more complex puzzles comes when you're faced with Mr. Lugs, who's sitting at a dining table eating a plate of rice. At first, he's invisible, so you have to light the candles at the table, but you're not done yet. You then have to suck away the rice, which does indeed take him by surprise, but the trouble is that he's served even more food by some waiter ghosts. As you've probably figured out, it's by getting rid of the food and then dealing with the waiters before they have a chance to get the food to the table that you're finally able to attack. In cases like this, it can take a second to figure out what you're supposed to do, and most of the time, that's the main challenge of these fights. It's less about actually vacuuming the portrait ghosts up, and more a case of figuring out how to make them vulnerable. My favourite of these guys though has to be Melody Pianissima in the conservatory. Here, you'll see a bunch of instruments, and interacting with each one causes it to start playing part of the Super Mario Bros. Theme. Melody then joins in with the piano before hitting you with a pop quiz. She'll play a little tune, namely the overworld music from Super Mario Bros. 3, and you have to guess which game it's from. This was a nice nod to the history of the series, and there are a couple more of these musical Easter Easter eggs, like the jingle that plays when you talk to the Toads being the same one from Super Mario 64. Now, while all of this is great, there is one criticism that a lot of people have with Luigi's Mansion, and that's its length. I mean, you can beat it in mere hours, but that's part of what makes it so replayable. This is reinforced by the ending, or rather, the endings of the game. Aside from the portrait ghosts and booze, one of the main collectibles that you gotta look out for on your journey is money. You'll find loose cash everywhere around the mansion by interacting with or vacuuming objects like drawers, chandeliers, vases. Like, King Boo must have been loaded, bro. There are even a handful of secret rooms with a ton of loot inside, and man are these well hidden. It gives you a strong incentive to explore every room of the mansion from top to bottom to make sure you're not missing any secret passageways. Some of the bosses can give you extra rewards too, like diamonds, rubies, sapphires and pearls, which can further boost your funds. Once you clear out all the ghosts, Gadd will use the money you've gathered to build you a house, and what you end up with of course depends on how well off you are. This ranges from the A rank ending, where he builds you a massive mansion even bigger than the original one, all the way down to grade H, which is literally just a tent. Not a small house, a little shack, or even a shed, just a tent. This system serves as a good motivation to replay the game, as you want to secure your boy Luigi the best house possible. Beating the game also grants you access to the Hidden Mansion, a sort of hard mode with more resilient ghosts, but a more powerful poltergust to compensate. In the North American and Japanese releases, this was a sweet but ultimately unremarkable feature. Interestingly enough, in the PAL version, which is the one I played though, the Hidden Mansion is a completely different beast. For starters, the entire mansion is mirrored, so if you had the layout memorized from your first playthrough, this can really mess with your head. All of the rooms have also been made significantly darker than before, more boos are required to beat the game, and bosses have been altered to have harder attack patterns. These are only a few of the changes, a lot more stuff was tweaked, and I'd recommend giving it a go if you haven't tried it already. I know this effectively became the definitive Hidden Mansion across all regions in the 3DS remake, so that's one way you can try it out for yourself. So overall, after having played Luigi's Mansion for the first time, I would definitely recommend it. Despite its short length, it remains an absolute classic of the GameCube era and laid the groundwork for a series that's still alive and kicking to this day. It was nice to have Luigi in the limelight for once, and without this game, he probably wouldn't be the same guy we all know and love today. So whether you're replaying it one more time or going in blind like I did, Luigi's Mansion reminds us that even the most unlikely of heroes can shine, and with a little bit of courage, they too can shoot for the moon. Listen, don't ask about the rap, I have no idea why I did it, genuinely, but I hope you enjoyed it nonetheless. I just had to flex my incredible lyrical, musical, rhythmical talent to you guys, because clearly I'm an expert in the field.